So my name's Abby Carchio. I am from Massachusetts, South Shore, so Lakeville, if anyone knows where that is. I played for NESC throughout my youth career, my club career. I went on to play collegiately at Brown University, and then I played professionally in Lithuania and Iceland most recently.
Hi, my name is Nathalie Nidetch. I'm from Long Island. I'm from Hewlett, New York. I played for Hewlett High School, and then I played for Albertson FC growing up for my club. And I went to Northeastern and I played there. And then for my pro career, I've been playing in Israel for the past 2 seasons. It's the top Israeli Premier League, and I played for Hapoel Ra'anana.
Having us, and my name is Jessie Davis. I'm originally from Fairfax, Virginia, but I've been in the New England area since 2011. I went to Woodson High School and played mostly for BRYC, Braddock Road Youth Club. I played at Penn State University, and I've been playing overseas since 2017. So I spent a year in Australia, in Sweden, in Northern Ireland, and now I'm in Denmark for my 2nd season in Denmark.
Yeah, I think for me, obviously the people that I've met is huge, but I think what stands out the most for me is just the differences in style of play, differences in landscape, differences in culture. I think in those differences, there's a lot of growth, personal growth. So yeah, moving around different countries, playing overseas, you get to experience a lot of differences in different aspects of your life. And I really am grateful for that.
It was the opportunity to travel and to see another country. And I actually happen to be Jewish, and I got my Israeli citizenship. So playing in Israel for me was a really, really cool opportunity to get in touch with my roots. And I also met some of the best people that I've ever met in my life. Like the people that I had around me at my club were some of the best human beings. I consider them family now. So that was honestly one of the biggest takeaways I took from it.
I think it's been kind of a 2-part combination. Of course, with the football development, it's crazy what you'll get, in my opinion, out of playing for a European club because the style is just so different. And I think I spent most of my youth and then collegiate career playing like, what you would imagine a stereotypical American. And I certainly still have those tendencies, but there's been a lot of refinement and development, and that started at a really late age for me, like at 30. That was when I learned to really properly hit a ball. So that's one huge part of it from the soccer, football nerd in me. But to me, I think that the absolute best thing has been accessibility to the rest of the world. I think you can look at playing professionally overseas from just like the football perspective, or you can also look at it from the cultural perspective. And really, when you're overseas or when you're in Europe in particular, you just have so much access to all the surrounding countries, and you just don't have that sort of access when you're in the United States. And so I've just really enjoyed being able to live that side of this dream as well.
So I was fortunate enough, my college coach, McNeil, she actually put me in contact with my current agent, Damon Wilson. And so he does all the legwork for me. He puts out my CV to different teams, and Gintra, the team in Lithuania, contacted him. So I would say most of that work is done through my agent. But I also do my own due diligence and look up different leagues and teams, so I know what I'm getting myself into a bit.
So I played in something called the Maccabi Games, which is a small Olympics for all Jewish athletes. And so I played for Team USA, and one of the goalies who was also on Team USA had gotten an email from this club interested in her, but she was still in college. She couldn't do it. So she asked if I wanted to do it. And I knew I'd already wanted to play soccer professionally, but I hadn't talked to any teams yet. So I was like, oh, this is perfect. And I reached out to them, and then we just started a dialogue. And then that's when my agent stepped in and started the middleman in between business. But when I heard it was Israel, it was kind of fate for me because of my background. So it honestly worked out perfectly.
My very first team was through a connection through a teammate. that I had. So I actually have never had an agent. So my experience might have been a little bit different from the both of you. And I think having an agent is super valuable. And there are definitely moments that I wish that I would have gone that route. But every team that I've played for has been through a teammate or former teammate or a friend of a friend. So that's been, in my experience, the most powerful thing for me.
I think in the women's soccer or women's football, there aren't a ton of agents in the game just purely based off of money. So it's really hard to find someone that's has good intentions. So I think that's something that I strongly recommend is find the intentions of the agent. Are they doing this for money, or are they doing this purely because they love the game and love empowering women? And then in terms of what to look for in a good agent, I think someone that's willing, that really believes in you as a player and understands the type of player you are. So for me, I'm a very possession oriented player, and Damon understands that. So when he goes and looks for a team, he knows, put me on a team that's going to play two-touch football. So yeah, I think just having an agent that understands you as a player and has your best interest at heart is what you want to look for.
So for me, I think when I was trying to find an agent, one of the biggest things is that I wanted an agent who I was going to be able to be in contact with whenever I really needed to, who was going to be in contact with me, especially going to a country that you've never been to before. You need someone who's going to be there for you and who's going to be that contact person. So I know I've talked to other girls and they have different, I think it's all about what you really want. But I know girls who didn't want that with an agent. They wanted an agent who found them a team and that was it. And then they figured out the rest on their own. For me, I definitely wanted someone I could contact whenever I needed to with any kind of issues, who cared about me as a person at the end of the day, not just a soccer player. And I think that's something that you can find out through having conversations with different agents and getting to know them as an individual, and not being pressured to say yes to anything if you don't feel comfortable with it. Be okay standing up for yourself and saying no when you need to and saying yes when you need to. And just at the end of the day, make sure they're a good person.
Integrity and honesty is a really big thing, especially in the women's game. Like Abby said, there's not tons of money to be made in this side of it. And so you really want someone who's in it for the right reasons. That's a big part of why I haven't had an agent, just because I've had some experiences with people that I was sort of testing out, and I didn't really like all the big promises and the fact that someone might have hundreds of players that they're looking for at the same time. It just, there's a lot of agents out there, and you really need to do your homework and your research. I also think it's important to see who they've represented, what sort of type of player and what their background is and where they're sending their players, because I think you can also get a lot of valuable insight depending on where players are going and their experience prior to getting there. So it's a lot of your own due diligence. Like Abby said, you have to really do your homework, I think.
The number one thing is just where you're going to be living, a living accommodation. So housing, and for my contracts, I've been given a car so I can get around, get to practice and whatnot. So for me, those are the two main things that you would look for initially. And I was advised to make sure you speak to one of the girls on the team before you commit, because they're going to give you the best insight in terms of the living accommodations, and is there furniture in your house? Do you get Wi-Fi? Little nuances like that the girls will be more honest about than the clubs, I found. So yeah, those are the things that you can expect, or you should expect, and really do your homework on in terms of living conditions and your transportation.
I think a big part of it was um, also the language barrier that you might face when you're there. It's not necessarily a bad thing if not many people speak English, but you do want either one person to know English or have a translator available. I was lucky that most of the girls on my team spoke English. All the coaches spoke English. But that is definitely something I would ask about. And then also to see how in contact they are with you on a day-to-day basis. Are they the people who work for the club? Are they people you can rely on in case of security issues or any kind of things you might need on your day to day, how to use the bus, how to use this, how to do that. Making sure you have someone there who can help you out and be a little bit of a tour guide for you when you're in another country.
Certainly housing is number one. I think, on top of a salary, whatever that is, you should be provided housing. Transportation, I think, is an interesting one because it's very cultural. So like in Denmark, you might get a bike, but you're not going to get a car. But I think every team that I've been on has at least been super willing to help accommodate transportation, whether that's just getting rides from teammates or you're never, in my experience, never left at a bus stop waiting for someone to pick you up. So those are two things. If you can get a food stipend, that's helpful. I think if you can't lose money playing overseas. I think you can break even and count it as a good experience, but you can't lose money. So I think you need all of your basic needs met, and that's food and housing, transportation. Obviously, you'll get your gear. One thing though that's sort of not on in that side of things is I think you should really do a lot of research as to where your club is. If it's in an urban place or if it's more rural, a lot of clubs that are willing to bring in international players are very, very rural or very, very north in cold countries, because it's typically a little bit harder to recruit people because they don't want to come there. So they're happy to extend to eager Americans in particular who are willing to move overseas. So I think it's important to do your research as to where you're going. And I also really suggest going to a club that either has other international players or has had international players in the past, meaning they're very familiar with what it takes to accommodate you from a visa perspective, contracts, bank accounts, phones, all of those things. Because when you're navigating that on your own in a foreign country, as Nathalie said, you may or may not be with people who speak your language. And so you need a lot of support. And I just think clubs that are historically having Americans in particular, and certainly if not that, at least other international players, those are going to be able to give you your best sort of setup. I was in touch with a team, again, through a connection I had. She had played there before I had a few years prior and had put me in touch with the team, and they had my film and they were basically like, look, we think it's a fit based on your play, but we really want to make sure that it's a fit within the team. And even though you might think, well, are they not sold on me? In retrospect, I think it's really important that the team takes their time to get to know you as a player and see how you interact with the other girls and women on the team. So they flew me out to Sweden and I spent a week there. The first few days they gave me to sort of overcome jet lag and just get settled. They put me up in a hotel with all of my food included. And I just went to all the team trainings that week. So I think I had about 3 to 4 team trainings to attend, maybe three, and then maybe a lift. And yeah, they basically said, again, we're pretty interested before you even get here, but we just want to make sure it's the right fit. And we need to make sure that we can figure out the accommodations in terms of finances, because they had had Americans prior, but had taken like 2 years from having any international players. So they needed to figure out where it was going to come from in the budget. And so they wanted me there so that I could kind of explore options with them. And then at the end of the trial, they basically, again, were like, we're 99% sure that we're going to sign you, but we just need to make sure we get our ducks in a row and we'll contact you as soon as we have an answer. And it was maybe a few days later where they officially offered me the contract. So if a team offers you to go on trial, you should again expect to get flights covered, small asterisks there. If they don't sign you, they might ask for a reimbursement. But most clubs bring you on trial with intention to sign you. And you should also expect your accommodation and all of your food to be covered.
I feel like I definitely got this piece of advice, but I wish I followed it a little bit better, is to just embrace the differences. So when in Iceland, when they literally don't have stores open past 4 o'clock in the afternoon, don't get frustrated with that just because that's the way you've always done things. Just embrace that and try and lean into the cultural differences in that. So I guess just expect a lot of differences overseas and then embrace them, would be the piece of advice I wish I followed a little bit more.
You're in a new culture, a new country, a new language, and there's going to be social and societal norms that are not the same, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing, and to just full on embrace it. We are lucky that we're doing soccer as a profession, but also at the same time, it's giving us an excuse to travel the world and to learn and actually like listen to other people's aspects of life and their how they perceive life. I think is something that we all wouldn't be able to experience if it wasn't for soccer. So I think we should really just fully embrace it and learn from it.
I'd also like to just add that I think kind of, and this is going to make me sound old, and I know I'm much older than both of you too, but like the world that we live in now is so digital. And I think a lot of us who are playing overseas, we do have incredible opportunities to travel, and there's photos and images that make life look incredible. And you're in beautiful places and you have access to those things. And I just want other girls and women to know that there are downsides to this. There can be loneliness when you're in a country by yourself, if you're just on your own, and language barriers can be challenging. And so having that open mind, as both of you said, is just so important. And I think you need to just be brave and take a lot more chances in terms of social things, in my opinion, because that will make the people that you meet will make your experience that much better. And I think you really have to be willing to push your comfort zones and just be able to adapt to things when they're not exactly as you expect. Because with any incredible experience, there's some challenges as well. But I think if you learn to navigate those challenges, you can make traveling and playing professionally abroad a really long-term option for you in your career.